sky. Well, you cry out and you don't know why. Come on now, let your feet fly. Come on now, let's go for a ride. Come on now, let your feet fly.
I'm Ash Wednesday.
I'm Izzy Dakota Jones, and we're here with L. Harlow from prison. Let's hear it for L, everybody.
Yeah, which we've been, we're just saying, we've been super excited and wanted this to happen for a long time. So,
oh man,
and
thanks,
I can't
guys.
believe that today's today.
Thanks for having me
Yeah,
over.
it's good to have you on.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's really cool.
We're among friends.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, we're just talking. So, I just finished listening to that single about a couple hours ago.
Victoria.
It's Victoria. It's the Kink song.
The-
I mean, you converted some of it to like your experiences, right?
Well, yeah, this came out of the blue. I was playing guitar on a couple of the new Thor albums,
Oh, wow.
and their producer, who says to say hello, Kevin Stewart's
Yeah,
name.
yeah.
He
Mr.
says
Swain.
hi.
Yeah.
They said, well, can you do one more track? And let's cover the Kinks Victoria. And well, I'm a Kinks fanatic, so yeah. That was easy. So yeah, sure, okay. So I cut the track. Oh, they sent me the rhythm section. So records now are made. So the keyboards are put on by Daryl Hebert in Arizona. So everything gets done online. So I did all the guitars and all that kind of stuff. So we built the track up. And I said, well, you're all ready for Thor's vocals now. And he said, no, we want you to sing it.
Cool.
What? Like, what are we doing here? So it turns out that the city of Victoria, we're coming from BC, folks, their hockey team, the Victoria Cougars, won the Stanley Cup in 1925, beating out the Montreal Canadiens in 1925.
Wow.
And so the
I
whole
didn't know that even.
me neither. I didn't know they had a hockey team or that the Canadians were around in those days. So anyway, this is their 100th, like the centennial celebration of the Stanley Cup being in Victoria.
Whoa.
So they wanted the song Victoria. So they said, sing it. So I sang it, and now we got a new single.
Wow.
That sounds great, too. Your voice sounds
It-
like we were freaking out this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
It sounded really good. Really had that. You had that balls behind it. It just had that grit to it.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
You know, it really did. I was really impressed with it.
Too dumb to quit. Well, you know, for those of you who remember the Kinks Victoria song, Ray Davies,
Yeah.
Sir Ray, he's knighted. Ray really sang it in an affected British accent.
Yeah.
And I thought, uh-oh, I'm doomed. What am I going to do? You know?
Yeah.
And so I thought about it, and then a friend of mine said, look, you're just a punk from North Vancouver hopping freight trains. Be that guy. So, okay, that was easy.
Yeah. So
that's
easy,
cool.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, be the Kinks fan.
Yeah. That is so cool.
And you know what that's like, Joey. You just
Oh.
let her have it. Just
You did,
wait.
and I love the Kinks too. A quick story. I had a friend of mine. I don't know if you know him. He used to work at A&B Sound, and his name was Bob Dujek, and he was a drummer, a really good drummer, really good. But anyways, he worked there, and he loved albums and records and stuff. And anyways, he calls me up, and he says to me, "Do you have a band happening right now?" He says, "What kind of band, right?" He goes, I got,
What do you want?
Yeah, what are you looking for, right? He goes, I got a gig for you. And I says, what? Tell me what it is before I can. I says, I got a cover band. I says, I'm working for Al Feldman right now. I don't got an original thing happening right this moment. He says, oh. He goes, that won't work. And I says, who's the gig for? He says, well, the Kinks are playing at the Coliseum. They don't have an opening act.
Wow.
So I says, well, how did you get that? And he goes, well, I says, I'm a good friend with Norm Perry. Because Norm comes in and buys albums.
I remember
From
Norm.
Periscope Productions.
Yeah.
So he says, Norm comes in all the time, and he came in and he was stuck. And he goes, Joe, he said to my friend, he says, I need a band, Bob. Help me. So then he said, Bob said, first thing is I thought of you. And I says, okay, let's call Marie Heatherman. I says, because she might know somebody. I said, I don't want to go to Sam because then Sam's just going to go all over the place and pick out who he wants, and you know, let's get specific about what you want.
And put it on their contract.
Yeah, put it on their contract. So Marie offered him Ray Roper.
Oh, perfect.
So Ray went and did the gig, right?
Oh,
and then I got to go and see the show for free. They says, you know, Norm Perry says, you can go for free, Joe, for helping me out. And I says, okay, no problem. So the fun end of that story is my friend Joe Sicardo. I don't know if you remember Joe.
I remember Joe.
Joe was playing drums for Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Joe lives across the street from the Coliseum, so it was an easy commute to sound check and play. And he got so excited that night, like he's throwing the sticks in the air and he's standing up and he's doing all this.
All right.
Got fired. Ray fired. Ray says, "You're done. You're showboating. You're done."
Right.
Joe said, "I don't care." I got to play the Coliseum.
You lived it.
And I played with the Kinks. He says, "What do I care?" Yeah. I just started laughing because I remember watching Ray's like looking at my, and he's going,
sure, man.
after every song, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's such a funny story.
He's in Kinks heaven, man. It's great.
I know. Wow.
Go, Joe.
So what else? What I want to talk about now, like Asher's is noticing too that you got a lot of gigs coming up.
Yeah, you got a
this year.
huge tour you're about to take off
Well,
on.
Prism keeps going, man. Yeah.
Well, it's great songs, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. But you know, and I'm not blowing any smoke here because it was a team. Prism always was a team.
Yes.
effort.
Yes. Yeah.
For songwriting, I mean, we had Jim Valens. How could you go wrong,
Oh,
right?
I know.
At the time when he and Ryan were getting together, so we had both of them writing for us. Lindsay Mitchell, myself, and between that little consortium, we
that was
and
brilliant.
John Hall would kick in. He wrote a couple of big ones. See Forever Rise. He wrote the song and Mirror Man and stuff. So between all of us, I'm just grateful because I'm still flying the flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a funny thing that we were talking to Tommy Stewart a couple of weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the first time you hear your song on the radio, right?
Sure.
And then it hit me, for him and you too, you heard your song on the radio and then you never got off the radio. Like you're on the radio today, guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then Bonnie and I were driving around yesterday. Hi Bonnie, it's my girlfriend, she's my woman.
Hi, Bonnie.
Yeah, she never misses the show, and because she's awesome. Anyway, we were talking, and I was thinking about the radio, and then I was thinking about streaming and how so many people just listen to Spotify or whatever it is. But the difference is when you're on the radio, that goes out into space.
That's right.
Forever.
That's right.
Like that lives forever.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like we've all been on the radio, so
Yeah.
we live forever.
Absolutely.
In the atmosphere. It blew my mind when I realized it yesterday.
But no, you're right. Like you said about with Al and people like Al and Tommy.
Oh,
like they're always on. You guys are always on. Like that new station that's new for me over the last year is the Native station, and they play you guys all the time.
Oh, really?
You guys, Prism and Trooper, and they all play a lot of Canadiana, of course, which is great.
For sure.
Which is great, and you drive the street and I'm hearing a Prism song and I'm just going like, it's just it's lasting, it's everlasting stuff. It's the and then I think the other thing too with Al is, especially with Al, and I guess Tommy too, but it's just that you guys have that era about you that you guys kind of were the guys who set up the Vancouver music scene.
Yeah.
You guys are a big part of that early 60s movement. You know what I mean? I have so much respect for you guys because you guys had such great bands from the beginning to now. And you make the music so endearing, and it gives it a culture to Vancouver that when you hear Prism, you think of Vancouver, and you think of Canada, and
the International Space Station.
Yeah.
You know about that?
I got a couple astronaut buddies actually.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Garrett Reisman's a friend. Actually, he took this little star up to the space station. That's been around the Earth 185 times.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Man.
So and I know that they were using Spaceship Superstar as a wake-up song up there, which is epic. And then Joe said that you've had phone calls from space, and we were sitting at Thanksgiving or Easter dinner one day on Bowen Island, and my father-in-law, Michael Hogan, gets a call from space, It's Garrett Reithman, and he looks at his phone and he's like, I was like, you gonna answer that? And he's like, it's Garrett. And I was like, he's in space right now. And he's like, yeah. And it's like, you're not gonna pick it up. I'd rather have it on the machine, he said.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, he would call him all the time from space, though, when he was over top of Bowen. Say, look up, can you see me? Can you see me?
Wow,
Crazy,
man.
right? I know.
Gee, what's the area code there?
One.
Yeah. It's funny because when that happened, when we were their morning theme song on the last day of the space shuttle before they brought it down and put it in the Smithsonian Museum, I got the news. A Prism fan was actually tuned in to the NASA online newspaper magazine, the Bulletin, whatever it is. So this guy reached out to me and said, "You're not going to believe this," and it was like a minute old. It was like the news was published by NASA, and then I got it a few minutes later.
That's crazy.
So the first thing I did was reach out to Jim Valance, who wrote Spaceship Superstar.
Sure.
And I said, "Jim, you're not going to believe this." And the first thing he said, because he's pretty quick with this, he says, At last, we're a hit on Mars. So I'm sorry, we're at the top of the charts on, that's the lyric, right? At last, we're on the top of the charts on Mars.
That's right.
So, yes, Jim, we are.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
Good fun.
I was watching the Junos yesterday, and Beaches,
Yeah.
Group of the Year.
Isn't it amazing? Like two years in a row or something? I didn't know you could do that.
Who was it? Who was Group of the Year in 1981?
Well, we were.
Oh, right, it was Prism.
Oh, that was a trick question. Duh.
I just thought it was cool, man.
You were just testing to see how.
Yeah.
He's followed up on all your stuff.
Let's not always see the same hands, class.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
pretty
no,
cool,
it's
man.
so good. Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, like, all those, like I said, we were talking, like, when we coming back from your car, coming in here, and we're talking about Ann and Nancy Wilson.
Yeah.
Like, all you guys are all from that point in time, isn't
Yes.
it? And, and it's amazing, like, how Vancouver was very, like, had that creative musical feel back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it grew even from when you were, like you said, when we were talking about one of my favorite bands, beside Prism, was also, like, you were in for a while, like you said, we talked about was Seeds of Time.
Sure.
And I loved Seeds of Time. I used to go to all the be-ins at Stanley Park as a kid, and I just loved watching you guys play. I mean, you guys are just like, you're just a interesting Canadiana kind of classic band. Like, but it was all new at that time, right?
It was all new, yeah. When you're young, everything's new, right?
Yeah.
And we were discovering the blues. It's funny because people will say to me, and just to follow up on what you're saying, it certainly was a moment in the cultural pantheon. You know what I mean? Vancouver it had always been an outback. When we were little kids, as I said, hopping freight trains on the North Shore, hopping freighters and getting in trouble, smashing windows in the waterfront. And we may as well have been in outer New Zealand in those days. We were just a colonial, like, where's Canada, where's BC, where's Vancouver, who knew? But then all of a sudden a decade rolls by and everybody knew, And so as you pointed out, like BTO, Heart, Chilliwack.
When we talked about Tommy was, when we were talking to Tommy says, huge, which I am too, I'm sure you are, huge fan of Bill Henderson.
Oh, for sure.
Bill is such a good singer,
Yeah.
and such a good songwriter, and such a nice guy.
Yeah,
he's like you guys are, like you guys made Vancouver, you put it on the map.
And Canada, like, it's baked in.
Yeah.
There's nobody who doesn't know these songs. Like, it's baked in, man.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and it was now it's etched in stone, and it was a moment, and it's funny because we knew, somehow we just knew, okay, boys, fasten your seatbelts, this is it, you know what I mean?
Right.
One of those things.
You could feel it.
And it's funny because I do get asked, okay, what was the pinnacle, what was the biggest gig, blah blah blah, whatever it is, what was the big moment, getting the Juno with Pierre Trudeau, the Prime Minister was in the front row. No pressure. What's to get nervous? I'm going to jump off that moment, but to go to that particular moment, I thought, okay, what do? You stand there holding the Juno. You say, thanks, Mom and Dad, for the piano lessons. I mean, what do you say, right? And at that moment, when I was fumbling for something to say, I looked down, and the Prime Minister of Canada was sitting in the front row. And I thought, okay, I got nothing to lose. We've had to listen to your speeches. Now you have to listen to my speech.
Yeah.
But my real answer to the question, what was the pinnacle moment? Biggest gig, most numbers, and there's a few of those, some in the U.S. But you wouldn't think, but I bet you if the other Seeds of Time guys, which was before Prism,
That's right.
were in this room with us right now, we would probably agree that we went on a Western Canadian tour with Willie Dixon and the Chicago Blues All-Stars. And we were just punks, right? We were just these young guys.
I didn't know that.
But we were students of the blues. We were taking it seriously, and we got this tour. And of course, Willie would come into the dressing room every night and encourage us and say, okay, boys, you have a right to sing the blues. And he was like grandpa,
Yeah.
And
you must have been in awe. Because he was a bass
point.
player and you were playing bass at the time, right?
Well, not yet, but but Dixon was playing the Doghouse stand-up bass. And of course, he wrote Seventh Son. He wrote Hoochie Coochie Man. This is the man,
Outdoor
right?
Man, everything.
He's the guy who taught Muddy to sing it, right? So, I mean, it's funny. I would say that was certainly a pinnacle.
Oh, big time.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it was
That is
magic.
incredible.
Yeah, we actually.
And then you guys also with Seeds of Time. I saw you guys in the Agrodome open up for 10 years after.
You remember that?
I remember.
Are you old enough to remember that? He takes his vitamins.
I remember that well. That was such a good show. Both bands were like phenomenal.
That was another high point.
Yeah, both you guys, like Seeds of Time were great. And then 10 years after, come on, that's right after Woodstock almost.
They were at their high point.
And at that high point, and they were on fire. And I just went like, what a great show. Like both bands. That's when like Vancouver, like I was mentioned to you, Vancouver used to have their bands open up for a lot of the main acts, which I still can't believe that doesn't go on that much anymore. It should be the thing.
I bet that's a big part of why all you guys just blew up. Everybody got to hear it, right?
That's a really good,
That's a good point.
You guys are making a salient point here, which I've never heard this spoken before. But yes, I remember the United Empire Loyalists.
Oh yeah.
And God rest them. Rick Enns is gone now, but and Tom Colsey's gone now too. But they opened for the Cream.
I was at that show.
And we were there, brother.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. And so yes, these international acts would have been aware of us, collectively us.
Yeah.
And we did that. And going back to the 10 years after show, at that moment they were like the biggest band in the world. And I remember we had a good night that night. I remember.
You had a great night.
We looked at each other and we locked it up.
Yeah,
so,
you guys were really good that night.
And you know what else? We were recording our little Seeds of Time album up at Stevie Wonder's place in Hollyburn Mountains. Little Stevie Wonder, right? The radio guy, DJ.
I remember him, yes.
Yes, on, what was the name of it?
LG, he was on LG. Because I remember at the Peony, this is my favorite, it was Teen City. Remember Teen City?
I remember it very well.
Teen City was where they had all the bands play.
Mm-hmm.
You could be any band. You could have a blues band, you could be Seeds of Time, you had the Poppy family play.
That's right.
You would have Jason Hoover and Epics play. It was really, and I mean, I was only like 10, right?
Yeah.
So they would let me come in. You had to be 12 or something, but they'd go, okay. I'd sneak, they'd go, okay, we're gonna let you keep coming to the gate. I go, come on, I love music. So I used to get in all the time. One time I brought my grandma. My grandma was like 65 at the time.
Oh.
And the guy just looked at it and he laughed. He goes, you brought your grandma today? And I go, yeah, she wants to come in and check it out. She wants to know what I'm up to. And anyway, she comes, he goes, she's the oldest teenager in here, right?
Right, Grandma.
But that was a great venue for more acts too. That's where I met Stevie Wonder, the DJ, and that's where I met Jolly John Tanner.
Oh, yes, Jolly John. He's still with us. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it was a golden time.
Do you remember Jolly John Tanner?
No.
You would, because he was around in the punk era that you liked.
Oh,
in the 80s, he had a show, a cable show, and I forget the name of that now, but it was during the punk era.
Yes.
And that's where DOA and all those bands got, the young Canadians, they all got their exposure. That was the second wave. Like, these guys were the first wave, and they were the second wave in Vancouver.
Correct. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
Took over the world again.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember Jolly John. I'm getting off topic here now, but Jolly John Tanner, are you watching, John? In 1960, anyway, I was 12 years old, and this was big news on the radio. That day, on a weekend, Jolly John sat at the front of the roller coaster over here at the P&A, the wooden roller coaster which still exists, and he was going to set the Guinness Book of Records for roller coaster rides in one day. Or maybe it's 2 days, maybe it was over the weekend. John, what was it, 1 day or 2? And so he sat and just went round and round and round. And so I bought a roll of tickets. I'm 12 years old and I'm going to sit with John as much of this thing as I can. He and I, we've bumped into each other 100 times since then, but I've never brought it up to him. And so here's me. And so I sat behind him in the second seat, and instead of getting out when they pulled the bar away, I would just tear off another ticket and hand it to the guy. And I rode with John, well, all afternoon, but not as much as him. And he did set the Guinness Book of World Records for riding a roller coaster nonstop. So, way to go, John. I remember.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I knew John. I met John because just the next block where I used to live, at my family home was.
Right.
At the end where the hall is here, Clinton Hall.
Right.
Next door was a house that actually he dated his one of his first girlfriends used to be living in that house with her grandparents. And I met her, and then I got to know her, and her grandma and grandpa were great. And then I met John, and then John, I go to Teen City and see him there in the summer. But I went, he was announcing Led Zeppelin and Vanilla Fudge at the Agrodome. So he says, why don't you come with me?
Sure.
And Sherry, or whatever her name was. I says, okay. He says, the three of us will go. I says, cool. And then I got backstage. So I'm standing backstage, and out comes Robert Plant and John Paul Jones, and they're watching Vanilla Fudge play, right?
All right.
Vanilla Fudge was just unreal.
Yeah.
And then I never heard Zeppelin before. I knew of the Yardbirds. I knew Page was in the Yardbirds, but I didn't know much else. And then all of a sudden they went on and played that.
These new guys.
They were new at the time.
The
Only
new
number one
Yardbirds.
was out. There's only one record out.
Yeah.
And I went to John. I said, holy smoker, these guys really good or what? He says, oh, Joe, some of them are from the Yardbirds, right?
Well, yeah. I don't know how widely known this is, but the Yardbirds, when they broke up, had a tour of Sweden booked.
Yes.
They had to honor those dates. And of course, Page was up for putting the new band together. And so on Zeppelin's first tour, they were called the New Yardbirds, and they toured Sweden. So that would have been 68.
Yeah, 68.
And then they came here shortly thereafter. Yeah. I hope we could spin these things off the corner pocket, guys, because the gig that you're talking about with Vanilla Fudge, my little gang of ruffians and I had no money to get into the gig. Don't ask me how we did this. We would get shot and charged with conspiracy. Somehow, we shimmied through the dressing room window, and the dressing rooms in the Agrodome were like below ground, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a basement suite window, like this, like a letterbox. And I don't know how, but all 120 pounds of me, I don't know, they had the windows open. I shimmied in, we dropped to the floor, and there's Jimmy Page's guitar case with the violin bow sitting across it, and all their clothes, and there was a bouquet of roses and stuff, and there's nobody there but us, because they're all watching Vanilla Fudge. And we were scared. We thought, oh, we're not going to take anything, right? We thought, uh-oh, is this a good idea? And so we ran out down the hall. By now the guards are chasing us, and we disappeared into the crowd. And
that's how we used to do that.
That's how we got it.
I used to do that at the Coliseum. You know what they did at the Coliseum? Talk about Joe's. Part of what we did was there's a vent. It's still there on the side of the Coliseum, and it has locks. Well, we would bring the thing, saw off the locks, open up the gate, and go through the vent, and you end up in the girls' washroom. and then you're going like this. The vent's pretty small too. Like you got to be able to fit through the vent. With the girls' washroom, so you kick the thing open, and the women are going, what the heck?
I've seen that movie.
Hey, don't mind us, and then you're like, right, we're in the girls' camp, and we open up the hallway door, right, and the ushers are over here and over there.
Now, kids, don't try this at home.
That doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it's no longer a secret.
No, it's probably like really crazy glued now, right? But those are good times, yeah.
Oh, it's funny because all this we're talking about is before Vancouver exploded. Now, I want to go back to that for some reason I'm stuck on this 10 years after show, but we had just come down the hill from recording our little record that. So we had 2 singles, Crying the Blues, My Hometown at that time.
Oh, my hometown.
And we were recording another one, which was a song that I wrote called Supergirl, and we'd mixed it that afternoon, and we brought it to the Coliseum. So Dave Zephyr and Kelly DeYoung Sound were doing the sound.
That's right.
And we handed them the 7-inch reel, and they used the song that we were mixing that afternoon as the opening music to the show. And so the Vancouver audience were so loyal and faithful, well, maybe those are the wrong words, but they were so enthused about the local scene and the local bands.
Yes.
They spun this track. I mean, I was so proud because it was my song and I got to sing lead on it, and Jeff Eddington and I. In any case, the crowd had never heard it before because I just wrote it, and the crowd got up and cheered at the recording coming through the speakers.
Oh, so
somehow
cool.
they knew it was us.
Oh, yeah.
And that,
Wow.
I think I shed a little water out of my
I think so, eh?
And then we went on stage,
Wow.
in front of 10 years after. Anyway.
That was a good show, like I said. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, you guys had that. I mean, like, I remember going once and seeing Steppenwolf.
Oh, yeah.
And Steppenwolf, Tom Northcott opened up.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And Tom Northcott was great.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
said those few of those big hits, right? You know.
Yeah.
And he did that Bob Dylan classic. If you go into North Country Fair, right?
Yes,
You know.
yes,
He
right.
did a great version of that.
Oh, Tom still is a treasure.
Yeah.
A national treasure.
Yeah, and I mean, like that. See, like they didn't do that for very often, except in the '80s, like when the punk movement starting. When I talked to Joe Keatley, I asked Joe once. When I interviewed Joe, I was talking to him about opening up for Clash.
Yeah.
And I said, because I went to the show, and I says, how did you get the opening up for the Clash? He goes, well, we were playing in Alberta. And on the road, and he says, my road manager called me up and said, hey, do you want to open up for the Clash night in Vancouver, tomorrow night in Vancouver? He goes, yeah, okay, how much? He goes, $200. He goes, $200. Just thinking they got to come all the way back. He goes, yeah, we're going to do it. So they came.
Oh yeah.
They came up, and you know what?
I only have to pay $200. Sure, I'll do it.
Pay to play.
So they came on stage and they played. And I was at the show because actually I was working with, you remember Mike Filoni?
Yes.
And Mike was doing, running the monitors.
Right.
And I was running cable for him. And so we're running cable, and he says, you want to go to see the Clash concert? I go, yeah, I'd love to. He says, and, you run cable for me and I'll show you how. And I says, hey, I'll do that. So I'm running cable and we're doing all that, and then watching the show, and the DOA comes on, and they just like smoked the place, right? They were better than the Clash that night. Clash were good, but like they were like DOA says, I said, Joey, I just said, how much energy did you have?
Oh yeah.
He goes, Joe, we were so pumped.
Oh yeah.
No kidding.
We were so pumped to come back and play in our own thing.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
says it actually changed the directory of the band at that point.
Is that right?
Yeah, they got noticed a lot more.
Yeah.
And then they got bigger shows got offered to them and stuff. He said it did help. It did raise the bar for that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
History in the making.
Yeah.
And none of that stuff happens without you guys starting.
That's
none
right.
of that happens.
No. I
There's
know.
none of that.
I want to ask you something else about the backup stuff. With Prison, did you guys go on tour with the Beach Boys?
We sure did. Yeah.
And I heard that you had to be off the stage at a certain time. They were really strict about it. Out of the building almost?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
This will all be in my book. I'm doing the bucket list
Oh,
because
good.
the yesterdays do outnumber the tomorrows now, so I'm getting her done. So yes. So and
Wait. You kind of live forever in space. So.
Amen. Yes.
I don't know. Man.
Thank you, Lord. So anyway, when we were launching, shall we put it that way, about to embark upon our 15 minutes of glory, and Bruce Allen was the man.
Yeah.
And he'd done
Yeah.
it. BTO paved the way. Randy and Fred. They were paving the way for Vancouver. That was a breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
And we'd worked with Bruce for years before that, and Sam, so
Yeah.
it was like family already. So at that moment, the biggest thing about to break out in the whole business was Meatloaf, so we got that tour.
Wow.
And that
Oh, the Battle of the Hell tour.
Yep.
That's
Wow.
insane.
And
That's insane,
And
yeah.
we became very good friends, and there's a whole story in there because me really mentored our singer Ron Tabak. There's a whole, that's another chapter. It was really a warm family affair. It was fantastic with those guys. Anyway, the next large, long tour that we did was with the Beach Boys. And it's funny because now, whenever I watch documentaries on the Beach Boys, I can tell when that tour comes up in the timeline, because their stage was all white, and the amps were hidden behind these shims that kind of formed a V down towards the drums. So whenever I see that stage in the Beach Boys documentary, we're backstage. We're over there.
Yeah.
We were there, and yes, that was just before the era of cell phones, and so they had this policy. The Beach Boys did, and at that time, I think Brother Dennis had been told to stay home because he was having a family feud with Mike Love, because Mike Love was trying to hustle Dennis's daughter, and it was a pretty dysfunctional family. So and they all had bodyguards to keep each other away from each other. And we're witnessing this, right?
Wow, they're having problems.
They arrived in separate limos, right, with their guys. So their guys would, stand in the doorway and shush each one of them through. Al Jardine and Johnson, all of them, right?
That's wild.
And so, but they had this policy that no matter who the opening act was, and we were with them for like 8 months or something, and that'll be my punchline. They didn't want to meet us, nothing, right? And so their policy was, if they arrived to the Coliseum too early and the band was still playing, whether they were good or bad or had great vocal harmonies or bad vocal harmonies, no matter what it was, if they heard the band, they wanted them fired. That was the policy.
That's right. That's what I heard.
It's true.
Is it true?
It was true.
Oh my God.
So every night, Bruce Allen would be on like a wall phone, backstage, a coily cord phone, and he'd phone their manager at the hotel and say, okay, last song, click, and so we'd get off the stage and they'd pull up. And we did that, for 8 months. Anyway, the last show we did with them was Chattanooga, Tennessee. And by the way, Brian was coming out of the hospital and was rejoining the band on that tour. So that was 79. And so, he was having his problems and everything, but he was being ingratiated back into the band, and he still had his hospital bracelet on. And he was by far the friendliest. You could say hi.
That's great.
He was wonderful. So anyway, on the last gig that we're going to do, in other words, they can't fire us now, right? Yeah. Last show. And so we got off stage, and I'm covered in sweat. I got my towel, I got my bottle of water, and you can tell this little goofy guy's just been on stage. So I'm looking like this, And so I ran over to the stage door, because I knew the whole thing. I knew the limos would pull up to that door. I kicked open the door, and I held it open with my foot. And so as the limos pulled up, I'm the doorman. They look around, they see a door, they walk through it, right? So I'm standing there with my bottle of water and my towel, and I'm going to meet the Beach Boys, because they were our boyhood heroes, right? And they were on Capitol Records, and we were on Capitol Records, and so were the Beatles, right? So that all meant something to us. It was such a thrill for us, right? So I'm going to meet the Beach Boys. So I'm standing there, and they all shuffle by with no eye contact, right? Like boom, boom, boom. Al Jardine, bang. Mike Love, bang. They all just, right? And the last limo to pull up was Brian, with Dr. Landy, by the way.
Oh, no.
But instead of waiting for the chauffeur to come around and open the door, Brian kicks open the door, looks around, and sees a door, and runs towards the door. Well, he's running straight into my arms, right? And Dr. Landy's still over there talking to the chauffeur or whatever he's doing, right? So Brian and he had a sweatsuit on, like a gray sweatsuit. And he comes through the door, and he stopped and looks at me and says, "Hi, man, how you doing?" And so I went into my thank you for the music, Mr. Wilson, got all the records, thank you for your contributions, you are the Beethoven of our era. He goes, "Yeah? You like the records? Do you really? Well, thanks, man." And then he shakes my hand just because I said I liked the music. He goes, "Wow, that means a lot." And then all of a sudden, Dr. Landy says, come Brian, we must walk here. And as they're leaving, he's waving, "Bye, see you later." And I mean, he was childlike, I mean, who am I to say? But I don't mean to say, anything. But he was, the genius of our time. And if you read his book, he wrote it. Like, there's no ghostwriter. And I mean, he's a genius. But there was this wonderful innocence. Like his ex-wife, forget her name now, but she said the key to Brian is he wasn't concerned about the business and chart positions and all that kind of stuff. He said, will my music make people happy? That was the thought behind all of it, right?
Wow.
And so that guy, I got to meet that guy.
I saw him recently on a documentary with George Harrison's son, and his son it was in LA, and his son was doing a tribute to his dad, and Brian Wilson with Jardine came out, and they walked on the stage, and he did My Sweet Lord.
Oh my goodness.
And he sang and played it, and Ann Wilson was on stage, and she was like in tears.
Yeah.
She's crying watching Brian, and then after Brian played, she went to touch Brian, but Brian was a little more standoffish, I guess now. He was kind of like a little grumpy, kind of got up, and she touched him, and he smiled, and he just kept going. He just ran, and Al kind of went like, Al did the interview, like Brian wouldn't do the interview.
You guys been through the ringer, man.
Yeah, but you know, he still, when Minnie goes on that stage,
Yeah, right.
the musicians, all the musicians on that stage were like, whoa.
Oh,
The focus and
absolutely.
the cameras, everything was like, whoa. So
Yeah.
that must be very intense
No kidding.
for somebody like that, who, who's like you say, and I agree, he's a genius. I just think, I think he must think like, wow, like I'm glad you all like it, but like don't be so heavy.
Yeah.
Like lighten up a bit, right?
What year was Bad Out of Hell? 77?
78.
78.
And to go there
That
for
was
a
a monster.
Oh yeah, and that was
Yeah,
all wonderful. I want to cap off Brian here if I can.
Sure.
George Martin said, "You want to know who the genius of our era was?" And he says, "Listen." Well, I hate when people say "listen," but he said, "Look." No, whatever he said. Sir George wouldn't say "listen" or "look." He said, we had three of us. We had John, we had Paul, and we had me. Brian did it alone.
Yes. Whoa. Yeah.
And you see the documentaries, and you see Brian,
true.
the 18-year-old Brian, or 21 or whatever he was.
Yeah.
And here's the LA Wrecking Crew. These are the top session players
Yes.
in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
And Brian's standing there all alone, calling the shots. He hears it. He hears everything.
Right.
He's got nobody to bounce anything off of.
No.
He's not deferring to anybody. And
Yeah.
George Martin had three. Brian had himself.
That's so true, right?
That's
yeah,
wild.
that's so true. You know what? Yeah, I mean, that's what I meant. Like God, you told me that's so true about the tour, though. I just couldn't believe the set of rules they had. Like, get off the stage or you're fired.
It was crazy. It was, yeah.
That's like the Rolling Stones thing we talked about earlier, with the Rolling,
yeah.
with Leonard Skinner when they opened up for the
What's that?
Stones. Well, Leonard Skinner opened up for the Stones, and they were told, do not go down the catwalk and walk on the top.
Yeah.
And Leonard Skinner, the whole band, gets kicked
You're
off.
fired.
They don't care.
Yeah,
The next
yeah.
week they're on the tour with the Who, so they said we're fine. We'll be fine. And I thought I said, make sure you shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
Because that was just pushing it. They're the type of band that we went, no way, we'll do what we want.
Yeah.
Typical rock.
Touche.
Typical rock and roll, right?
And you see some of these celebrity riders online, no eye contact,
Yeah,
all that.
yeah.
Please, give me a break.
Yeah, no kidding, eh?
But you just mentioned
Oh, Bad Out of Hell.
Bad Out of Hell. So,
What's that girl's name?
Oh, the female
well,
singer.
well, there was two girls. The
Yes.
one who did it live was Carla DeVito.
That's right.
Carla, I hope you're watching. How
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah.
So, can I kind of go there for a minute?
Yeah,
please.
So, now the lady who sang on the records, name escapes me right now, but Carla did all the tours, and then did the studio stuff thereafter too, my understanding was. Anyway, she was dating the manager, his last name was Sullivan, I can't remember him now, but Meat's manager, so that was Carla's boyfriend. Anyway, we had a couple of weeks off in New York. Well, Rocket and I did, but that's their hometown, right?
Yeah.
And so I can say it was strictly platonic, but Carla was my date.
Nice.
Carla showed me around New York. We went to a rock show at an art gallery. We did a couple of things. She was just an angel. She was so charming and just a real lady. And Mr. Sullivan had nothing to worry about. But what an angel! Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That must have been fun.
the beauty of that tour, well, besides it was Meat's moment to roar. I mean, he was the biggest thing in the business at that time.
Yeah, he was.
And he recognized, and we became friends. There was none of this, we're the headliner and you're not, you know, there's, you know how that should go, right? And Meat would come into our dressing room every night and say, hey guys, you know, how's the record doing? You know, I mean, really, you know,
that's nice.
How are you guys doing? And he recognized that Ron Tabak, our singer, was not as experienced as the rest of us. You know, Ron, we'd already done Coliseums, right?
Yeah.
And Ron was a little green. This was all new to him. And so Meat took Ron under his wing, and he gave him these sort of dramatic method actor lessons. Like, so if you remember Meatloaf's show, he'd walk out on stage like with his nostrils flaring, you know, and his eyeballs out to here, right?
That scarf.
The whole thing, all that, right?
Yeah.
And so he taught, that was method acting.
Right.
Because he did the
Rocky Horror
Show on the New York stage.
Yeah.
That was him, right? That's where he got his big push. And so he taught Ron to walk out on stage and work the corners and do all that stuff. And that's where Ron learned it from. So before Meatloaf went on stage, you would hear Meat roaring and screaming and yelling backstage, and people are thinking, what's wrong, what's wrong? And all of us together with the tour knew, oh, no problem, that's just, Meat's just warming up, right? So he would be smashing chairs and stuff. Now he's ready to go on stage, right? And so I gotta tell you this, you know, bless his heart and rest his soul. Ron's gone to be with the Lord now. But Ron took those drama lessons to heart. And from then on, for the rest of Prism's career with Ron, when I heard screaming and yelling and pounding of lockers in dressing rooms and the smashing of furniture, I'd go, oh, I guess we're on. And that's the way it was for every single show thereafter. And bless his heart, it worked. You know, it worked. It worked for him. And I must say, back to Meat and crew again, they were so good to us that one evening, Michael Aday had legally changed his name to M. Loaf. Legally.
Okay.
And we were invited to the party. They had a big cake that said Meatloaf on, you know, like a birthday cake. So they actually invited us to the name, the nom de plume party. We were there. Yeah.
Wow. I remember, talking about Ron, I remember how I got to meet Ron. I met Ron through our vocal coach. We both had the same vocal coach. So John Hall's wife was taking lessons from my teacher, Bill Morton, and Bill was right across from A&B Sound. Now Bill was already, you know, back then he was in his late 60s. So he had grew up in vaudeville. So he was in Toronto and in New York doing vaudeville.
Wow.
So he would work with people like Red Skelton, Bob Hope, people like that. So he was, you know, Bill was, he couldn't play piano very well anymore, but, you know, he could still sing pretty good for an old guy. Wow. And he was playing, you know, and he'd go, you know, I'd bring up, you know, he was teaching me opera pieces, which were like really, you know, next for me, it was like, I couldn't sight read, but he was pushing me to sight read, right?
Sure.
So I'm trying to sight read, you know. What do you mean? That note isn't there, you know? Well, it's a C, right? Yeah. Well, you did a D. Well, yeah, okay, whatever, right? You know? Or you play a Beatles song. You know, let's play some Beatles, right? So one day we're playing this Beatles song, and he goes, he's playing away, and he's going, baby, 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 that's how it goes, making fun of it, you know.
Sure.
Baby, baby. And I says, okay, come here, Bill. He goes, what's that? I says, look at this opera aria, right? I says, it says, baby, baby in Italian.
In Italian.
Yeah, it says, I love you, da, 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 da.
Sure.
I says, where has it changed? 1700s to now.
Yeah, right.
Nothing's changed, Bill.
Yeah.
And he kind of laughs at it. But anyway, see, after that, he says, you know, I just thought teaching somebody today, and you would be really interested. And I says, his name's Ron Tabak. I says,
Really?
Okay. And he says, because John, you know John Hall? I says, well, I know of John Hall. And he goes, well, John's wife, and John said, we have this singer, but he's developing.
Yes.
And he said, I want you to teach him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he took Ron on, and he says he had 3.5 octave range. He says big range, like huge range.
Oh, yeah.
And he says his job was to get it under control.
Yeah.
Help him settle it down, because he had the pipes, but he had to learn how to use the pipes, right?
That's right.
And yeah, that was an interesting experience. And then I met him I would go to a lesson. Ron's coming out, I'm coming in. Ron go, have a good lesson. I'm like, yeah, okay. You know?
Is that right?
Yeah.
I never knew this story.
Yeah.
Bill Morton.
Bill Morton was his name. Great vocal coach.
Wow.
Really, really cool vocal coach. Really nice man.
Oh man, I'm learning something about
Yeah. And then
my
I would
brother
walk
Ron.
outside and he'd be sound. Of course, you see every day he'd be sound. And then I walk over to A&B Sound. There's Keith Scott.
Sure.
Yeah, and then Keith's like talking to me for an hour. That's the guitar player for Bryan Adams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course he was also Zingo and Bowser Moon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tonight at the Zodiac Cabaret.
Yeah.
Zingo!
Zingo, remember?
And Keith on his white Strat. Are you kidding? I remember every note.
Yeah, and the Jeff Beck stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I was talking. Who was I talking about? Was it you or it was Harvey, my bass player in my band, and Paul, one of my guitar players. We were talking just after rehearsal one night, and I was talking. And I was going to be talking to you, and we were talking about all the people we knew. And I said, "Oh yeah, I was watching a documentary the other night. It was on Bryan Adams." And I said, and they were talking about Keith.
Sure.
And I said, oh yeah, I said, watching Keith play, I watch him like nowadays playing. I watch him some stuff that he's done recently in the last few years, and I said, he's a really good, gritty guitar player.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was. I says, but he was like before. I says, he was mind blowing because I says he used to play the Jeff Beck stuff like right from lick to lick.
Three-way jam, man.
Three-way jam.
12 minutes.
Yeah, and it would and keep everybody like focused too.
Oh yeah.
Everybody just watching him play.
Of course, he's fabulous.
Yeah, he was a really good
Well,
he's
you
a
know,
really good guitar
when you hear Brian's new stuff, and it's one of the most recent. I guess we're going back a couple of years now since I've seen Brian. But we were talking about this, where when you're a kid, I mean, I'm embellishing a bit, but we were talking about rhythm guitar and that kind of stuff. And Brian just said, yeah, dig deep, dig deep. And yes, that's exactly it. Like when you're a kid, you want to show how fast and clever you are, right? How, look at me, I can shred, right? And then as you go on, it's like, make people believe it, Like dig deep. Like the blues is as deep as you can dig. Like the blues and gospel, that's not flashing out, that's digging way down deep.
Yeah.
And so now when I hear Keith on Brian's new records, yeah, he's not flashing out, but where he's going for those notes is.
It's really interesting.
It's really deep.
and it's really interesting because from this to that, it's grittiness. Like I was watching him the other night. Like then it was on. Then after Watch Out, there was a couple nights later. They were live at the Albert Hall or something, a concert they did.
Yeah.
And I watched him there, and I kind of went, God, now I get it. He's gotten more grittier, but it sounds so good.
That's right.
It sounds so good. At the end of it, I just went, and then Brian at the end of it goes, jam-packed Albert Hall. He goes, one of the greatest guitar players in the world from Vancouver, British Columbia, Keith Scott. I just went, wow, that's a nice thing to say.
Sure is.
Wow,
true.
So cool.
So true.
Yeah, it's so true too, isn't it? Right. And there it is. There's another cat that in your era, right? In your guys' era, right?
Yeah, it was that. There's something in the water supply.
I was going to say there's something in the water, but I think there's something in the air.
There's like two generations of this too. Like I said,
yeah.
There's like they're the first wave, like I said, and then the funk era kind of moved Vancouver into that era too, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't happened for a long time though. It's kind of funny how the city's kind of died down, right?
Well, it's.
What do you take that for?
It's
because you're still going,
mm-hmm.
and you guys still. I mean, you guys are like we're saying. You guys are part of the fabric now. You guys are part of the fabric
of the country.
Yeah. You guys are the fabric.
Yeah, and
you're interwoven.
As we were alluding earlier, the city of Vancouver has grown. It's more cosmopolitan now. There are other musical cultures. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You can go to trance stuff and bass and drum dance hall clubs and all that kind of stuff. So that, I mean, our demographic has aged a bit. Although I will say we get young people come to our gigs and so forth. But it was again, yes, it was a moment in time. Vancouver was a full-blown big city. Well, Expo '86 came and we invited the world and they showed up. But even in the decade before that, the city itself was maturing, so it wasn't just a little outpost anymore. It wasn't just a small town. And I guess it was just that right combination of everyone coming together as a community around that music. How else can you describe it? But since then, as we're pointing out, it's spread out, it's become more diverse, and some of that got a little diffused, I think. So
Yeah.
it was a magic moment. It was a magic time. It's funny. We still do gigs with Loverboy and Chilliwack and that, you know, the festival gigs and all that kind of stuff. And it's so funny because backstage we'll say, "So how are the grandkids doing?" You know.
Yeah.
but at the end of one of those shows, Bill and Chilliwack were just, of course, they delivered just a sterling show, and my heart was beating. And anyway, as Bill came down the back stairs, and it was whoever, you know, we were backstage talking away, milling around. And I just had to walk up to Bill and say, "Bill, you're a national treasure." He goes, "Al, we're all national treasures."
It's true too.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
Put it in his mouth, but
Yeah, no, Bill is great.
I would say, "No, Bill, you're here," and the rest of us.
You know, you're so right. You know, Al, because it's like I don't know any musicians like in your ilk, you guys' ilk, the first wave. I don't know anybody who doesn't have that kind of respect for Bill.
Oh my goodness!
You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just amazing. Like, even going back to when he was in the Collectors.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
and my bass player Harvey would live between here and Seattle.
Right.
His family were between both, and Harvey said, you know, I would see anytime the Collectors were playing somewhere in Seattle, I'd go.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He says the Collectors were just amazing.
Yeah, they were big in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah. During that
They
era.
were bigger than Country Joe and the Fish. Sorry, Joe. Statistically, I don't know. But yeah, I remember the What Love Suite. You know, they could drag that out for half an hour, and it's mesmerizing. You without losing momentum. Yeah.
You know, talking about you playing with Loverboy too. Loverboy's another band that those guys are so seamless. They just keep going.
Oh, they're wonderful. Yeah.
You know, I just can't believe how well they still go. Like I've seen them a couple of times at the P&E, and
Awesome.
and they're just like, the show is like really good, right?
Sure.
Oh,
Paul,
your song from last week, your pipes are, you're smoking that thing, man.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so good. It's
Yeah.
so good.
It is. It is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
No, it is.
Take care of yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, we played it for Bonnie too. She's freaking out about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
It sounded great. It sounds so great.
It does.
I feel good, you know.
Oh, you look great.
The only thing missing is sleep, you know. When somebody said, "Oh, you know, I only slept for 2 hours," I was like, "You slept?" I'm jealous. But take care of yourself. Remember what Mom said. You know, eat your vegetables.
Eat your greens.
Yeah. Get lots of exercise.
Yes.
Do all
Don't play
that.
too much of that rock and roll.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, it either keeps you young or it destroys you.
Well,
So,
look,
you know,
we were just talking. I don't know. Did you see the last Stones tour? Did you see the last?
I unfortunately didn't go live to see it live, but
We both did, but we
Did
weren't
you?
together. But the thing is, we went to see it. Wow.
oh, Mick's still dancing, man.
Mick
and he's
sings better.
singing.
He's singing better than he
He
ever
did.
sang.
He did, yeah.
I saw him in '72 and in the early '80s.
Yep.
Nowhere where he is now.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
His range has expanded. He's singing higher.
I can't believe it. I just went that show. I just went like, he totally like. I was like, you know what? Like I'm in awe of this guy.
Yeah.
Like I was always admire him, but now I'm going, wow, like I'm really like in awe.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
guy is bloody amazing.
He is. Yeah.
He's like
a
he
life
doesn't
force.
stop. I mean, Keith is kind of just pulling along nowadays.
Yeah.
But
You take the solos, Ronnie.
yeah. And you know, and I mean the admiration is still there for Keith. But I mean, like,
Oh,
but yeah, Mick blew me away. It just and you know, God, I'm sorry, God bless, we lost Charlie, but you know, what's his name?
Steve Jordan.
He's
Oh, yeah, he's the right guy.
Steve, he was the right guy.
Yeah.
Perfect fit.
He talk about playing deep.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
As
My,
Charlie
my,
did,
my,
so to
man, my
speak,
manager said in Los Angeles, Jay, he says, what'd you just think? He asked me after I went, I says, wow. I says, different feel. He really makes the band sound.
Oh, yeah.
They're punchy.
Yeah.
And he goes, they got the groove back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The groove is there. They dig deep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they are really good.
Yeah.
The bass player and the guitar and the bass and drummer, incredible. They carry that band.
Yeah.
They give the support it needs.
Yep. I mean, it's not Bill and Charlie, but it is Daryl and Steve.
Yeah.
They know what to do.
I just saw Bill the other day on an interview.
Really?
Yeah, I forget what it was for. It was like a 2-3 minute interview. It was on CNN. They were talking to him about something about rock music still. And he said, yeah, I don't have much to do with it anymore. He says, I play more blues than I play rock.
He's got the blues band.
He's still got that bluesy thing going, right?
Yeah.
And he looked great for his age. He was, he's
85 or
85 and he's still rocking.
Sure.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I know. That blows me away. That just blows me
My
away.
goodness.
And that's another guy too, like this guy here, Paul McCartney.
Oh.
The last time I saw
Sir
Paul, 3 hour show.
Yeah.
3 hours he plays.
Yeah. He takes one sip of water.
He does.
And no costume changes, as he points out.
Yeah, he just keeps going. He just keeps bloody going.
Sir Paul.
And it's just like one song after another. He keeps going.
Yeah.
I was going at the end of the last time I saw him. Looked at my friend and I says, Paul, and he goes, what? I says, I'm tired. Just watching it. He goes, hey, how long has this been?
Yeah.
He goes, 3 hours. I says, is he bored or something? I said, no,
No.
I'm just tired. Like, how does he do that? Like, I couldn't do 3 hours.
Yeah, the band takes a break and he stays out there.
Yeah,
You know.
it's insane.
Does Blackbird solo,
It's insane.
Isn't it?
So how long do you guys do when you're doing your shows now?
Well,
Depending
depending
on what the show is, right?
depending on the situation, 75, 90. We've done some 2 hours,
Wow.
non-stop kind of thing. Yeah,
It's
Wow.
a long show.
yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
And we were blessed, to have as many hits as we had. And,
Oh, you got tons of great hits.
and
Oh,
it's a blessing. It really is.
It is. It really is.
It's like what to not play tonight. You know what I mean?
But it's like you
Oh
said.
yeah, do you not play Virginia? Do you or Armageddon or
we usually-
right? There's some you gotta do.
Some of them have to be there. Yeah. Well, you know what's so funny?
The spacesuit shoots a star better be.
Well, yeah. So
I'll be really upset.
Yeah.
now there's no bragging rights because remember, kids, Prism wasn't a team. It was
Sure.
It was nobody's solo project. For that I got my own albums, but you expect, classic rock band comes on stage. You think, oh well, they'll save the big hit till last, right? Or till the encore. I mean, that's the formula, right?
Yeah.
But we opened with Spaceship Superstar.
That's cool.
And when I look out at the ocean of faces, it's funny what you can see from that stage. So we might have the young punters in front. They don't know how long we've been around. They don't know how old I am, right? And they're just banging away. Oh yeah, they just know the music, right?
Yeah.
So the first 5 or 10 rows are the youngest ones, right? And then way at the back, you can see the original generation, and they're twirling the Lexus car keys, and and they just had a nice big dinner somewhere, so they're all dressed in their finery. And then in between, we got the middle generation. But I can see who's who just by looking up. And of course, the musicians are doing this, and gradually, okay.
Taking notes.
But what I could spot is you get the die-hard fans who can sing along with all the B-sides.
Oh, yes.
You can see them mouthing the second and third verse.
That's cool.
These are the guys who bought the vinyl, they bought the cassette, they bought the CD, and now they got a Spotify account. So these are the guys who know the songs.
They're the fans.
Better than we do. I got to make sure that I get it right to please these guys. But then you can see the people who brought a friend. Like maybe someone who wouldn't otherwise bother to go to a Prism gig,
Yes.
but they got dragged along by the friend, right?
Right.
And so I can spot those guys. Because when we open the Superstar, the friend goes, oh yeah, these guys, okay, but that's the big song. So
there's more big songs coming.
now what? So and that's it.
Yeah.
So then comes Flying, then comes Take Me Away, then comes Take Me to the Captain, then comes Night to Remember, then becomes Young and Restless. And so I see these guys go, oh yeah, well I knew the songs, but I didn't know it was these guys. These guys did all that.
Yes.
And then so by the time we get to Armageddon, 2 hours later.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm just I got the gratitude attitude because I'm riding that wave along with the audience. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
we're in this thing together, folks.
That is so cool. You guys had like all those hits, and like you said, what was interesting coming back to where we started almost talking with when you talked about when you were in Seeds of Time, you had Lindsay with you, and then when you got Prism, you had Harlow, UL and John Hall, and you guys had that team, like you said, and that team putting those songs together, because you had that experience from being in those other projects.
That's right.
And all those people around you too, like we're saying, like whether it's Tommy Stewart and Trooper or whoever, you know. Street Heart. Yeah. Kenny, yeah. And you know, all those type of bands that had that vibe locally, and then it was like a cooking pot. That's like when we were talking about, I asked Tommy about when we were down, when you guys used to all be down at the Little Mountain.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked Tommy about that. I says, how was that for you down there? Because I said, I've been seeing the documentary and all that. And I says, I was talking to Bill Buckingham, he produces us. So Bill was down there, and then I asked, I says, how was it for you, Tom? He says, you know what? He says, we'd be recording in one room, and in the next room, you know, you go over, and it's, you know, I don't know. He says it's Chilliwack, and he says we go in and we sit down and they ask us to want me to play percussion. And he says it was a melting pot. He says we all went in there and we all came in playing different parts and doing different things, and that became the scene in there.
For sure.
It just was really energetic, right?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You know, people would come in, or when Aerosmith was in there, like Steve Tyler would be, you know, oh, what are you doing tonight, Steve? Oh, come and sing on the backgrounds on so-and-so's album. Yeah, okay. And you come in, yeah, I got no problem, let's do it. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, or Mark Lafrance told me the same thing.
Oh, yes, Mark.
Mark told me the same thing, right? He
Yeah.
just said, boy, it was just a melting pot.
You know, you're bringing up a really salient point, because that sense of camaraderie and community, don't take it for granted, because I'm not going to name cities around the world, but I lived in London, England for a while. I spent a lot of time in LA. I spent some time in New York. And sure, there's camaraderie, of course, the milk of human kindness. You know, people are people. There are great people everywhere. But let's take this one step further. Vancouver did have an extra dosage of community. Like there was no sense of competitiveness, put it that way, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, you want to play on my record, I'll play on your record, you know what I mean?
That was pretty normal.
Exactly as you're saying. We all supported each other because we were sharing the same dream.
Yeah.
You know, we all saw the Beatles on TV in 1964, you know what I mean? And we were all just in love with the same thing, and so that made everybody best friends. You know, you got your band, I got my band, hey, we're in it together.
Yeah.
Virtually.
I know.
And that
interesting?
That was special. I don't, not unique, but it certainly made Vancouver special. It was great to grow up here, and if you met a musician like George Greenwell or somebody like that, or Bill Henderson, and everyone's just saying, go guy, go, let's keep doing this. And even as young people, you know, we're all so enthused, but yeah, there was no sense of competition.
I got that. Went down at the Yale one night. I think I told Ash's story. And we're down to Yale, my buddy and me, and we're having, it was like a Tuesday night. I don't know, we went for dinner and we had a drink. And then we said, oh, let's go to the Yale. She was playing at the Yale tonight. So it was Jason Hoover.
Oh,
and
right.
So, oh, he smoked Jason Hoover in the Epics.
No kidding.
Let's go.
King size.
Yeah, so we get inside and sit there. And who walks in the door? Just 3 sheets to the wind. But it was Burton Cummings.
Okay.
So Burton comes in and he's like, you know, he's just flying. And you know, we go to the washroom, right? And we both go in the washroom. Bert comes into the washroom. So my buddy turns around after he washing his hands. He goes, Bert. He goes, you know, I love Share the Land. I just love that album. I love that. I love that song, Share the Land. I love that whole album. And Bert starts saying, Share the Land. And you know, the tiles, it's all tile, right?
Oh, yeah. That sounds great.
And he was like nailing it, right? And I'm going, I look at my friend Dave, I go, you just got a free concert.
Sure did.
Bert Cummings sitting in the man's cab at the Yale.
Yeah.
And then he walks out, and then he looks over at Jason in the corner. Jason goes, come on. And he jumps up and he starts playing piano. The bar manager comes up and he goes, okay, you guys stay. We're shutting the doors. It's 1 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. You can all have food and drinks. We're going to order food, some pizzas and stuff. We're all going to sit around and watch Jason and Burton play.
Wow.
And we stayed till 3 or 4 in the morning. They were playing all. And Burton was like just playing and singing blues. Yeah, he was doing the blues. There was a lot of blues stuff and R&B stuff that he loved, right? Wow. And it was great. It was, you know, he could still carry it.
Oh yeah.
He could still go up there and kind of a little inebriated. He could still play the show. That's what I'm trying to say. He was like
That's where the depth of all this stuff comes. Is your guys' love of the blues. That's where all this deep stuff comes.
I have
from.
all even punk music.
Absolutely.
It's all the same.
A lot of that punk music for sure, but like coming from that myself, like we were listening to you guys, right? But not knowing that you'd been listening to that. That's like the Stones. I love the Stones.
Absolutely.
And then when I realized, oh, they're just taking those riffs.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when I put that together in my head,
Yeah.
it was. I didn't realize it at the time, but you guys knew it right out of the gate, right?
They knew it. They knew it out of the gate. When I was young, I always wanted to know. Like I grew up watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, right?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
the
sure.
Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys, all that sort of stuff. I grew up with as a kid, and then I started wondering. Not even 2-3 years into it all, I started wondering, well, what did they listen to, right?
Exactly.
To find BB King and all that.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
Howlin' Wolf, Muddy
Howlin'
Waters.
Wolf, Muddy
Yeah,
Waters.
yeah.
So then I started playing. That's why I wanted to play blues harp. I started watching James Cotton, and my favorite is, like I think I told you, Sonny Terry Brown and McGee.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
and they played
Del-
Vancouver 100 times.
Yeah. And I just love Sonny's harp playing. And there used to be a bar downtown called Egress Nightclub. I don't know if you remember the Egress.
I remember the Egress.
Yeah, just a tiny little place, right?
Yeah.
And they
I
would
saw Lenny Bro there.
Yeah. Did you see Lenny Bro there?
And John Hammond Jr.
Oh!
Yeah.
I know. I went there, and I used to sneak in the shows that I saw. I saw like John Lee Hooker, Freddie King.
Yeah, man.
And it's the size of this barbershop.
Absolutely.
It was
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It wasn't very big, right?
Yeah.
And they would do 2 shows.
Yeah.
And I would sneak in for the first show, and then I would go into the washroom and hide in the washroom. And they would come in and check the washrooms. And he'd go, what are you doing? I'd go, I want to stay for the second show. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll let you stay.
Close the door.
Wait here, I'll come and get you. And they would do that. They got to know the owners. They would,
Yeah.
okay, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, because I was young, right? They go, you know, are you legal to be even in here? I says, well, no, I'm 18. They go, okay,
Sure,
we'll let you come in. We'll let you
16.
Yeah, 16, yeah. And you'd stay there, but you know what? You'd be sitting, like you said, like from here to here.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I got my influence, watching them
Yeah,
that close.
for sure.
And you know what? They would play like they were playing in front of 100,000 people.
Oh, they
Like,
meant it,
They,
yeah.
they meant every little thing. Albert Collins
Yeah.
blew my mind, right? You know?
Playing left-handed
Yeah, Strat, right?
Yeah.
Telly, I mean, left-handed Telly.
in the Flying V.
Yeah, it was just amazing stuff, and you got to see how those people, not only did they play so well, but when they would come and sit down at our table,
Yeah,
talk to us.
Yeah, right.
These are guys, you know, guys from the south coming sitting down and talking to a bunch of guys from the north, young
Yeah.
kids and people, and they talked to me. I remember Albert Collins saying to me, "Why do you like the blues, little boy?" Or, you know, and I'd be going, "Well, you know, blah 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 blah. You guys, amazing, right?" And he goes, "You know, I like you, right? When you buy you a drink, and you buy me a drink, or,
That's great.
you know." But they were like amazing, right? That's how I got it,
Right.
by watching these guys, like Seeds of Time and all these guys when growing up, and then I started going, where did they listen to it? And then
Yeah.
you know, and then you start picking up on the blues and stuff, right?
And yeah, and as you point out, and we're all talking about the same education, because the Rolling Stones hit in '64, and it was all blues covers.
Yeah.
It was all Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters.
That's right, yeah.
And Hubert Sumlin licks, you know. And so it took us 5 minutes to figure out, okay, this is where they got it from, and that turned us into students. All of a sudden, well, we better go do our homework.
back.
Yeah, and we're still playing. I'm still playing Hubert Sumlin licks, you know.
I like
Right.
one thing Tommy always says to me in the last while. He's funny. Tommy will say to me, I'll go, "Yeah, I don't understand about this or that." And Tommy Stewart says to me, he goes, "Joe, you never stop learning. Remember that."
Right. Yeah.
And I went, "You know, Tommy, you're right.
Absolutely
You're
right.
actually right. Thank you for pointing that out to
This
me."
guy's a prince, man.
And he's funny. He just says, "Joe, I don't want you." And I complain about somebody in my band. I go, blah, blah, blah. You go, "Joe, no. Everybody makes mistakes. It's a band.
Yes.
People are allowed to make mistakes. You know, you're still learning." And I go, "Yeah, okay." In other words, stop complaining. I get it.
Yeah.
Hear that, Paul?
There's that footage, that black and white footage of Hendrix. I think he's on British television. And he hits a bad note or something, and he looks at the camera and goes,
Yeah, right.
What? How angelic is that, right? Oh well, it's history now.
Well, that's like I saw Paul McCartney in Seattle at the Kingdom, and I think the first song in, they'd open with "Bad on the Run,"
Oh my.
and then going into the first
Who
chorus.
starts with the big hit?
Yeah,
Crazy,
that's
man.
crazy.
He does that stuff. Yeah.
It's not allowed. Yeah.
Because there's more hits to come.
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
Yeah.
So Al, he's playing, and first chorus goes in the first chorus, and the crowd's singing, right?
All right.
And he goes like this. He goes, "Wow."
Yeah.
He goes, and you can hear him on the mic. He goes, "We've got them in the first chorus."
Absolutely.
And so he goes into another chorus, and we're supposed to go to the next verse.
Oh, yeah.
So the band's going into the verse, he's in the chorus. And they screw up, right? In front of 80,000 people.
Magic, isn't it?
And he goes like this. He goes, uh-oh. And then Linda, his wife, was there still. And Linda looks at him, she goes, "You screwed up."
Right.
And I just started laughing with my friends. I go, "Look, it's Paul McCartney, man."
Oh, sure.
I mean, he's human, and he, he messed up, like brilliant.
Wonderful. And the audience get to witness this magic moment, and it's part of the magic.
It is.
They love it. They're there to love it. You know?
So, Al, you're talking about you still? Are you writing still?
Yeah, as a matter of fact. Thanks for asking. It ain't over yet.
No.
So the whistle hasn't
Prism
blown.
still got has right now 70,000 monthly listeners on Spotify alone. I looked today.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot of fans.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of hit songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for mentioning and for asking. I really feel as though that the batteries are charged up right now, because I have friends who give me a good firm kick in the pants, say, "Come on, where's the next song coming from?"
Mm-hmm.
And the tap is turned on this year, so yeah.
Victoria sounds killer.
Well, thank you so much. That was a nice little catalyst, yeah. Because then that sort of connects you to the next step.
That motivates you.
Yeah, and so there's a few songs, the kettle's about to boil on a couple of new songs, and that leads. Then you can envision the next 5 songs, and yeah, like I said, the way that my current album, Al Harlow Now, came about. Kevin Stewart Swain, our friend Kevin, and Scott Young, the owner of Alchemy's Studios out in Westminster, great drummer, great everything. Scott, great singer, great guitar player, was officially the producer. Anyway, I'll quickly tell this story. I guess, was I feeling like I was in a fallow period? I can't remember, but right around 2016, 17, somewhere in there. I got a phone call from those guys saying, "We want you to sing a session," or something like that. I said, "Oh yeah, sure. Well, who's on the session?" "Just show up. We'll show you. We'll give you the lyrics." All right. So I thought I was going to sing some Bee Gee vocals, some background vocals, and somebody else's chorus.
Right.
Okay, sure. A session's a session, right? So I showed up, and there was a bit of that. And they said, "Okay, now we want you to sing the verses." "Whose project is this?" "Never mind. Just sing." "Okay, is this a demo? Is this for somebody else?" "We'll tell you later." All right. So a few hours later, we've done like 2.5 songs, getting into the 3rd song now. So finally, we took a coffee break. I said, "What is going on here?"
Yeah.
And they said, "These are the first 3 songs of your next solo album."
Damn.
Wow.
And you guys, okay. And then they said, "You better have 7 or 8 songs ready to go, because the rest of it's up to you, buddy."
That's cool.
And
That's good.
Yeah, isn't that charming? So bless their hearts, So that turned into an album, and so that kind of process, just we sort of give each other inspiration, right? We encourage each other, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Because it's art. It's not war, man. It's art.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
I want to hear a little bit about this book that you're teasing.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I know we've all got a book in us, and somebody said to me, with all these rock biographies and autobiographies, and I've been lazy, if you want to get your book properly published, it's between 280 and 325 pages. It's a formula, right? It can't be any longer than that, generally speaking, right?
Sure.
I mean, Rockets was 545.
Wow.
Anyway, so somebody said to me, "Well, Al, and I have to scale. I've already got about 550 pages, which I know has to be edited down, right? So it's not like I have to build it up. I got to edit it down. But somebody said, "Well, Al, are you going to embellish? You know, you're going to just spice it up a bit?" I said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "There's stuff that I have to leave out."
Yeah.
And no, it's all true. But who was it? Was it Ian? What's his name? Who wrote the James Bond stuff? Right? Yeah.
Fleming.
Ian Fleming. Thank you. Just make him turn the page. Make him turn the page. Right?
Yeah.
So it's just the wacky adventures, and truth is more brilliant and robust than fiction. So. No, folks, it's all true. And as Keith would say, I remember everything. So yeah, so this is the year because I think it's time. I think it's time to get the book out. But yeah, you know,
that's exciting.
Life is so blessed, and there's so many fantastic stories. And we were talking about New York a minute ago, and just that community and all that kind of stuff. And I remember, sorry, this is just one more anecdote that just sprung to mind. So. In those days when we were touring the States, the tour might end before the next one picked up, or there might be a break in the middle, like on the Meatloaf tour. And I remember a tour came to an end, and I wouldn't come home. I was young and single. What do I want to go home for, you know?
Sure.
My dad goes to my apartment and waters my plants. I'm okay, you know? So I would stay out. And Lindsay and Rocket and John Hall, they had wives and girlfriends. And so, anyway, I stayed in New York. Actually, truth be told, Rocket stayed with me. We decided that we're going to have fun. Under the auspices that the record company is picking up the tab and we're doing media interviews. We're doing radio and press. That paid the tab. Well, of course, we thought this was all free. We didn't know it was being taken off the final tab eventually, right?
Yeah.
So there we were in New York. We each had our own suite at the Mayflower Hotel in Central Park. There was a 24/7 limo waiting for us down below with the driver and stuff. So we were little Lord Fauntleroy. We were two spoiled kids in the big city, right? So we're hanging out for a couple of weeks, and we were taking turns doing the interviews and stuff like that. So one day I had a day off, and so I went downstairs and grabbed the driver and said, "I want to buy some clothes. Can you take me to wherever the hip place is?" "Oh yeah. It's Rizzo's was the hip haberdashery in 1978. It was 79. I'll take you to Rizzo's. Okay, let's go to Rizzo's. So Rizzo's was the hip clothing boutique, and it was owned by a guy named Ratso Rizzo, like after the cartoon strip, right? And he dressed like him too, with the striped pants and the ducktail tux, right? This is the guy. He's alive, right? So the limo pulls up behind another limo. And there's all these big burly guys standing out front like this, talking to each other, right? So I'm looking at this, and my driver says, "Stay there, lock the door, stay there." "Oh, okay, I'll stay here." So I'm sitting in the car. So my guy goes over, and they're talking to these guys, and back, and the door's closed. So my guy comes back and says, "Okay, it's okay, you can go in there." It's like it was a private, somebody was in there shopping.
Right, it was private for them.
And it was all private, right? "Oh, all right." So meanwhile, I go over to where these bodyguards are. Someone turns the key, opens the door, and kind of kicks me in. "Okay, buddy," boom, and then locks me in, right? I turn around, and it's Peter Frampton.
Oh!
Woo! And at that moment,
Cool.
he was the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, he was, yes.
Frampton comes alive.
Right, yeah.
And there he was, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and we're both 5'7".
So you could feel the way he felt.
I could feel the way he felt. And we both weigh 127 pounds, right? And he looked at me, and I looked at him. Now, his hair was blonde, and mine was this dark, right? And we looked at each other, and we just burst out laughing, like, okay, you know? And so this was just so much fun. Peter, I hope you remember this. So we're the same size, right? And there's just the two of us, and we're running around like kids in a toy store, right? So he'd hold up a shirt and say, "Do you want this? It would fit you, you know?" And I'd say, "Oh, no, that looks better on you." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're doing this, right? And we're laughing away. We just had a lot of fun. And anyway, I'm saying, hey, Peter, how about that? We're throwing stuff, you know? And so I came away with a whole award, and so did he. And the funny thing was, too, I went to shake his hand, and his hand was in like a cast. And there's the famous story about how he caught the girlfriend with the wrong guy and punched the wall. And so I went to shake hands with him, and he gave me this.
Yeah,
And at first I thought, hang on, what's this? And oh, sorry. And I said, hey man, you're a guitar player. Like, maybe you better take it easy. He goes, yeah. And so anyway, that was one of those moments, right? So,
Wow.
so you know, an hour later, or it was probably like 47 minutes later. Oh, okay, Val, you know, travel safe. See ya.
I would like to ask him about Humble Pie. That would have been interesting.
Oh,
With
yeah.
Steve Marriott and that.
Steve Marriott. Oh my goodness, yeah.
What a great singer.
Lord rest his soul. Yeah.
He was brilliant.
The voice. I wish the Small Faces were still together.
Yeah. I mean, I love that guy's voice. It's just one of my favorite singers of all time, right?
I'm happy just to be with you.
Yeah.
And loving you the way I do,
Yeah.
Oh, Steve.
Yeah, he was great. He was brilliant.
Sorry guys, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I'll be better tonight. Yeah, have more coffee. Huh?
Yeah. I want to thank you, Al.
Well,
No kidding.
You know, Al,
thank you so much.
You know, Al, it's an
Thank you,
honor.
brother.
Oh, love it.
We covered some ground here, man.
Yeah,
We
dude.
covered a
And you know
lot.
what's great? We didn't talk about all the stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we dug
Well, what
in.
we do with this show is like, you know, like I said, like we've had Tommy, we had Gary Taylor on, a lot of the people, and they love it. Because what they're liking is they says, you know, this is fun.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just come on, we just talk, we have some food or drink, and we're just
We're
chatting
all
away.
music fans, man.
Yeah,
We all love it.
We're all music fans.
Yeah, and we just want to talk to everybody about their experiences and want people to be in on the conversation.
That's right.
That's what we aim to
We're
be.
in this thing together.
That's
I
right.
love that.
Yeah, we are. All right. I'm
Hear
Izzy.
that? We're all in this with Prism. Can you believe it?
Peace out, everybody. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
That was good.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.